What's up guys, it's your boy Stoney. I just want to say that I think I just ran into a huge problem. I think my mom might be better than me at coming up with YouTube video ideas. She wrote this for me before I left my hometown and came down to Miami. This is my first time actually getting to look at it, and the first thing I saw was topics you never covered. What's it like to be a walk-on? Now I know that I made the life of a student athlete video and that popped off exponentially, and like I've said before in my previous videos, I wish that it didn't, only because it didn't give a true description of what the life of a student athlete is like, because that day I didn't even have class. How are you gonna get a true idea of what being a student athlete is like if I didn't even do all the things that student athletes do? But one thing I do know is what it's like to be a walk-on on a Division I football team. Now most people may think, oh, student athlete life, oh, hard, like maybe like you got football and school, like lack of sleep, this and that, you know, all the bases. Being a walk-on, I promise you, is probably the worst position that you could be as a college student. So now I do apologize for the scene and the pink bed covers. I haven't set up my green screen because I literally just got here yesterday, and this is my girlfriend's house, in fact, so I have no choice of what bed covers we decide to have in the house. Aside from that, I feel like it's very important for up and coming college students, college athletes to know what it's like in the case that, you know, you end up being a walk-on, because you don't think about what it's going to be like if you are a walk-on. You're going to think about what it's like to have a scholarship and, you know, have college paid for, because that's hopeful thinking. You know, you're going to want to think positive about these things, because if you think negatively about them, then you're not going to succeed in the things that you want to accomplish, you know? But these are just a few things that my mom wrote down just based off of what she observed, and, you know, obviously she's going to be pretty involved when it comes to the financial part of college. You know, some people obviously don't have the luxury of, you know, having their parents being able to support them for college, so they have to work on their own, which in turn would make their life even harder, which hats off to them. Honestly, that I can't imagine what that would be like. But these are just a few observations that my mom made while going through this process with me, because, you know, obviously we communicate. She's there with me every step of the way. One of her points was no eating with the team. If you're lucky enough to get put on scholarship, that means you don't have to pay for anything, including food that's at the CAF at the university. So going in as a walk-on, I knew that I needed to get a meal plan. If I didn't get a meal plan, that I would be paying out of pocket. I would be eating out at restaurants like every night and getting food and taking it back, and that's not very light on the pockets. So there's different types of food plans that you can get. You can get like an unlimited meal plan. You can get like a limited meal plan where you get like certain swipes into the cafeteria per day. For me, obviously, you know, with playing football, I'm gonna get the unlimited meal plan because I'm gonna be going more than once a day. And I definitely did. When I gained 30 pounds, I was going 4 times a day alone, on top of sneaking some breakfast in the morning from football. And that's another thing I wanted to get to as well. If you're not on scholarship, then you're not getting the scholarship kids breakfast that football provides in the morning before practice. Now you can pay for it. I'm not sure. I think it's like $150 a semester, but the breakfast isn't that good. 90% of the time, you know, it's powdered eggs, little sausages, and potatoes. I mean, it fits the criteria of nutrition that you need before practice, but, you know, it still sucks getting every morning. And I'm not trying to like complain too much about it, because, you know, we are getting fed, but at the same time, if you're eating the same thing every morning for all 4 years of college, you're gonna get tired of it. You're gonna get very tired of it, and you know in the back of your mind that your football program can pay for quality food, but instead you're getting powdered eggs. Now that obviously sucks, but if you're a walk-on, unless you pay the $150 per semester for the food in the morning, then you're not gonna be eating. So now back to the cafeteria part. Now if you're not eating with the team and you didn't get the ultimate like meal plan with the cafeteria and get all the swipes, then you're not going to be going to the cafeteria every time with your team. You're going to be left out, and that sucks, because if you're a good player, but the rest of your team doesn't know that, and you're just trying to work your way in to bonding with the team, but you're excluded from a lot of the things that they can do because they're on scholarship. And that's exactly what my mom wrote too. Some guys get embarrassed, feel inferior, feel left out, not a complete part of the team. My first year of college was very rough. My roommate was on scholarship and he was hanging out with all of his other scholarship friends, and he was also from Miami, which is where my school is at. And he had friends that were already around the area, and plus he could go home whenever he wanted. So it's me and one other kid, and I'm just locking myself in my room, in my cave. The only time I go out is if I need to eat or go to practice. Other than that, I'm in my room working diligently on my college homework, which I'm also freaking out on because I thought college was going to be the hardest thing on earth. It's pretty terrifying, but once you start to get your routine going, and then you understand how the classes work, then you start to become more comfortable. And for me, that's when I started to branch out more and socialize a little bit more. It wasn't until my sophomore year that I got finally put on scholarship. But before all of that, before everything, before I even got to choose a meal plan, we had to do orientation. Everybody's been through some sort of orientation type deal, but my college orientation was an orientation nightmare. And she is not lying. That was absolute misery. So football players are obviously supposed to be taken care of by the football program. When I came in for orientation, it was supposed to be all the football players, being taken separately away from like the regular student group, so they could go to the SAC, Student Athlete Academic Center, and choose their classes there and get everything sorted out with our football, advisors. When I got there, they had no idea I was there. And it wasn't until about an hour and a half after we had done all the annoying orientation stuff where everything seems like kind of pointless except the part where you have to choose your actual classes. So we get about an hour and a half in, and we finally see one of our football advisors that I had talked to on the phone previously and met up with once on an official visit. He's like, "What are you doing here?" I'm like, "I'm doing orientation." He's like, "You're supposed to be like over at the SAC. Like, how long have you been here for?" All of the other players were over at the SAC at the same time that I was doing this orientation stuff. Now, the coach that was coaching at FIU my first 2 years, he had a reputation of kind of misleading players, and that's exactly what my mom wrote down on here. And I've talked to some of my former teammates, and they had said the same thing, that hey, like they're promising like this and that, like promising a ton of game time, promising starting right away. But luckily for me, I was better than the 5th-year senior that was already there, so I staked my claim based off of performance alone. And for me, that was truly it. I had gone through high school thinking that I was going to go somewhere on a full ride scholarship because the first letters I started getting were from Tennessee. Imagine that, I'm a junior in high school, I get a letter from Tennessee, and then I start getting other letters from like big colleges like FSU, Florida, USF, Georgia. Being a walk-on in a college sport sucks. It does. And if you're a walk-on, you might as well have been just somebody else like right out on the street. If you're not worth a scholarship, then you have to think like, damn, am I really not good enough to get a scholarship or even continue my sport? And I'm here to tell you that that is not true whatsoever. As a walk-on, the last thing you should ever feel is underappreciated. Because if you have it in you, then you know that nobody else knows that you have it in you, which should give you all the motivation in the world to just ball out like you can. The cool thing for me was I knew walking in there, I was the underdog. I was the only one pretty much in my entire class that came in not on scholarship. I was competing against a 5th-year senior who was predicted to start. So in my mind, I'm thinking I get to be the walk-on that goes in and takes this 5th-year senior spot and just ball out. I tied the record for longest punt in a game at FIU. I have the record for most punting yards. Granted, that's not a great stat to have. It's actually a terrible stat to have, but it's still a record. And I I started all 4 years and nobody came in and took my spot, and I left on top. Not only that, but I got to spend a little bit of time on the Dolphins, and you know, I came from being a walk-on, and I can only look back on it and say, like, damn, like, I really came that far. So you can't let yourself get down too much if you're gonna end up being a walk-on, because it means absolutely nothing. But if you ball out your first year, if it takes a little bit longer, for like, even for me, like it took like a year and a half, year and 3/4. That's how long it took for me to get on scholarship. Look, even my mom wrote it. Some guys go this route even if they are starters from freshman first game. So now what she means by that is literally what I just said. You know, I came in as a freshman, I started, it took a year and 3/4 to get put on scholarship and finally recognized for my ability, but it finally happened. That was easily one of the greatest feelings, because I knew I had worked so hard in high school to try to get to that moment. You know, working so hard just to try to get a scholarship right out of high school. You want to receive that recognition because you know how hard you worked. And it's tough when you don't get that recognition that you deserve, but you know, it's all more satisfying once you finally get put on. So my advice to anybody that's looking to go into college, still in college, not on scholarship, just keep grinding, keep balling out, do what you know how to do. Just put in the work. That's really all it takes, is just straight repetition, consistency, and work. If you want it, then you know you can get it. It's that simple. Now, when I saw my mom had this video idea for me, I couldn't not make it. That's why I did it so urgently, because I feel like a lot of people need to learn that things aren't just going to be given to you based off of how hard you work. I mean, obviously some unfortunate things happen here and there where things just don't work out. And in my case, you know, I'm a kicker. Not very many people want a scholarship to kicker right off bat unless they're #1 on everybody's list. But my biggest advice is just repetition and consistency. Somebody is going to notice. That is the case for everything. Whether you're a sprinter, whether you're a swimmer, basketball player, baseball player, hockey player, if the shot's the same way every single time, this is an absolute life lesson, because you can take this through the rest of your life. And this is what I found out the most, that if you're the most consistent and you do things the right way, you're going to be awarded eventually. It may not be instantaneous. For some it is, and luckily for them, you know, the road's easy, but sometimes the road's a little bit harder. If you've had an easy route your whole life, then the work that you've put in, you know, might not be that great as compared to the person that has had to go through the rough seas, you know, to get where they are now. I mean, the product or whatever they do is just going to be 10 times better because of what they've had to go through. Now, if you guys found this video to be helpful, feel free to let me know down in the comments. If you want to message me directly, just hit my Instagram, it's right here. As for me, future plans, I think I'll be on TikTok a little bit more now, because back when Vine was a thing, I was big into that. Whatever idea I had, just right away, right on the camera. Simple as that, easy, and kind of funny sometimes. But let me know if you guys thought this video was helpful. If it wasn't, then I'm sure I left out a few things here and there. Just know that the process is difficult, but if you keep working, you're gonna be appreciated, you're gonna be noticed, and you're gonna get rewarded. And that's about it, guys. Thanks for watching.
Birds in the truck, they ain't leaving at the nest. Pie base set like milk. Yup, running with the back, got schlepped. Hands in the cookie jar, cut his finger off. Being greedy, we gon' cut his tummy out. 100 bricks on the road, take a couple routes. Flush mama house, her, Mr. Finley couch. I ain't really with the razzle dazzle. I come out, but then I throw him out the boat battle.